Hey, my name is Ethan. I'm 29. 3 months ago, I was just a broke contractor trying to save my dad's business. Then I took a kitchen job for a married woman in a gated community I had no business being in. One night during a storm, we were alone in the dark, and she leaned across that marble island, smelled like jasmine and lemon oil, and whispered, "If I kiss you, it doesn't count." My heart was pounding so hard I thought she could hear it. I looked at her and said, "Then kiss me twice." We never did. But that one line changed everything. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments, because I still don't know if what we did was wrong. I stood in that dark kitchen at midnight, the under-cabinet lights casting soft shadows across the marble island between us. The refrigerator hummed. The air smelled like lemon oil and sawdust. She leaned forward, both hands pressed flat against the cool stone, and whispered, "If I kiss you, it doesn't count." My heart slammed against my ribs. I should have stepped back, should have laughed it off, should have done 1,000 things that weren't this. Instead, I heard myself say, "Then kiss me twice." But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to the beginning. Back to when I was just a broke contractor trying to keep my dad's business alive, and she was just another rich client I'd probably never see again after the job was done. 6 weeks earlier, I woke up to a stack of overdue notices on my kitchen table and a voicemail from my sister Lily reminding me about a bathroom job that barely covered gas money. The apartment smelled like the jasmine laundry detergent from downstairs, mixed with burnt coffee and anxiety. I was 29 years old and drowning. My dad died 2 years before, leaving me his renovation business and a pile of medical debt I couldn't talk about without my throat closing up. Most days I felt like I was wearing his work boots and pretending I knew how to fill them. Lily met me at our warehouse that morning. She's 3 years older than me, practical in all the ways I'm not, and she took one look at the numbers and said, "We need the Johnson job." "What Johnson job?" "The one I found in the contractor group chat. Big kitchen remodel, gated community on the north side." She pushed a printout across the table. "They're loaded, Ethan. This could keep us afloat for months." I got the call that afternoon. A woman's voice, polite and measured, confirming a walkthrough at 4 o'clock. I spent the rest of the day cleaning sawdust off my boots and printing estimates on paper that didn't look too cheap. When I pulled up to that gated community for the first time, I thought I'd made a wrong turn into a magazine spread. The guard checked my name against a clipboard, and the iron gate slid open with a mechanical whine that sounded like money. I drove past houses that could swallow my apartment whole. Perfect lawns, ring cameras on every door. The kind of neighborhood where my truck looked like it was lost. The Johnson house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac. Modern, white, floor-to-ceiling windows that probably cost more than everything I owned. A woman was watering plants on the porch next door, watching me with the kind of curiosity that makes your skin itch. She smiled when I looked over. I didn't smile back. Marcus Johnson opened the door mid-phone call, Bluetooth earpiece blinking. Scrubs. Distracted handshake. He waved me toward the back of the house without really looking at me, his voice echoing through the vaulted ceilings about OR schedules and referrals. The kitchen was dated but expensive. Cherry cabinets, granite counters, a massive island in the center. Everything screamed, built in 2005 and never updated. Then she walked in. Camille Johnson moved quietly for someone in a house that big, barefoot, simple blouse and tailored pants. Her perfume reached me before she did. Something soft and jasmine with vanilla underneath. She met my eyes when we shook hands. Actually met them. Not the way Marcus had, glancing past me like I was furniture. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice was warm but careful, controlled. like she'd practiced sounding that way. Marcus kept talking on his phone while Camille walked me through what they wanted. New cabinets, better lighting. She asked precise questions about materials and timelines. He checked his watch and nodded at whatever she said without listening. I spread my sketches on the island. My hands left faint sawdust prints on the granite. Camille leaned in to look, and I caught that perfume again, mixing with the lemon cleaner someone had used on the counters. "This is beautiful work," she said, tracing one of my drawings with her fingertip. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, muttered something about the hospital, and suddenly we were shaking hands again, and he was telling me to make it nice for her, like she wasn't standing right there. The door closed behind him. The house got quieter. Camille apologized for his abruptness, smoothing it over the way I imagined she smoothed over a lot of things. We finished the walkthrough. She showed me the pantry, the breakfast nook, a small window seat buried under throw pillows that looked like no one ever sat there. As I left, I caught her reflection in the glass door, standing alone in that big, echoing kitchen, gathering lunch dishes by herself instead of leaving them for someone else. I nodded at the neighbor on my way out. She was still on her porch, pretending to scroll her phone. I got the job. 2 mornings later, I pulled back through that gate with Lily riding shotgun and my truck full of tools. The sun glinted off those perfect windows. The neighbor, Denise, I'd learn later, was already on her porch with coffee, watching. Inside, Camille greeted us in work-from-home clothes. No heels, just bare feet whispering on the tile. Marcus was already gone. Lily warmed to her immediately. Camille offered coffee and pastries, asked about our dad's business, listened when Lily told stories. But I noticed the way Camille's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The way she said, "Everything's fine," a little too quickly. We started tearing out cabinets. Dust and old wood filled the air. Lily and I fell into our rhythm, her making jokes, me measuring twice and cutting once, both of us trying not to think about the bills waiting back at the warehouse. Around noon, Denise appeared at the door with cookies and questions. "Welcome to the neighborhood," wrapped around. "So you'll be here every day? And Camille, you're so brave having strangers in your house?" Camille's politeness never wavered, but something tightened around her eyes. Later, a teenager came home from school, headphones around his neck, backpack dragging. Jordan, 17, and already learning to be invisible in his own house. By evening, the kitchen looked gutted, exposed. Camille reheated leftovers and ate standing up at the island, under cabinet lights casting a small halo around her in the growing dark. Lily noticed it too. On the drive home, she said, "That's a lonely house." I pretended I hadn't been thinking the same thing. The next morning, I came back alone. Storm clouds building on the horizon. Denise's car gone, the street quiet. Marcus was home, unexpectedly, in gym clothes making a smoothie in the half-demolished kitchen. He joked about the mess, called Camille obsessed with this remodel to my face like she wasn't in the next room. He hovered all morning, asked about my age, my business, whether I had a girlfriend. Friendly questions that felt like a test. I watched him call out to Camille instead of walking 10 feet to find her. Watched her correct him about a forgotten parent-teacher meeting. Watched him shrug it off like it didn't matter. There was a small camera dome in the ceiling. Marcus tapped it and laughed. "That thing's never really worked. HO a paranoia." Late afternoon, Camille took a call in the other room. I heard fragments through the wall. "I can't keep doing this." A long pause. "No, I'm not talking about the remodel." When I left that evening, I saw her through the front window, leaning on the island, eyes closed, the house glowing warm against the darkening sky. I sat in my truck wondering if rich houses make people lonelier or just make it easier to hide. 2 days later, mid-morning, the heavy demo was done. The room echoed and raw. Camille made coffee in a clean white mug, her perfume mixing with lemon cleaner and fresh-cut wood. We spread samples on the island: cabinet doors, paint swatches, hardware. She pointed to a shade of blue and said, "Like the one you did for the teacher with the cluttered pantry." I froze. That job was 2 years ago. Never made it into my portfolio. Just an Instagram story I'd posted and forgotten. She saw my face and flushed. I looked at your work online before we hired you." "How far back did you look?" She bit her lip. Didn't answer right away. Then, quieter. "There was a photo of you and your dad, on a job site. You were holding a level." My dad had been dead a year when that photo was taken. She would have had to scroll back months to find it. "You've been following my work for a while," I said. Not a question. "I liked that you looked like you still cared about the details." She straightened the sample tiles, not meeting my eyes. Not just the money. Something shifted in that moment. She'd been watching me long before I ever walked through her door. This didn't start in her kitchen. It started on her screen, late at night, scrolling through the work of a contractor she'd never met. We talked longer than we should have that day. About fathers, about work that means something, about carrying weight you didn't ask for. She told me about her dad, how he never fully understood her success, but loved that she fixed things. I told her about making a promise to my dad in a hospital room, about keeping a business alive because letting it die felt like letting him down again. The air between us got warmer. We moved around each other in that half-built kitchen, shoulders brushing, fingers touching when we reached for the same sample. That night, lying in bed, I scrolled through my own Instagram, found those old posts, saw the little heart icon next to C. Johnson going back months. She'd been there all along, watching, waiting, wanting something she couldn't name. I set my phone face down. Couldn't sleep. The next morning I arrived under heavy clouds. Camille was already in the kitchen, hair pulled back, barefoot, jazz playing softly from a speaker. The smell of coffee and lemon oil. We fell into an easy rhythm. She worked on her laptop at one end of the island. I installed framing and checked electrical. Every so often she'd bring me a fresh mug, and her fingers would brush mine just a second too long. Mid-morning she told me she was tired. Not physically, emotionally. Tired of being the strong one. Tired of holding up a life that looked perfect from the outside. I shared the story about sitting with my dad, the machines beeping, the promise I'd made, the weight of it. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Quick. Then pulled back like she'd touched something hot. Denise appeared at the door with misdelivered mail, eyes scanning the scene. Jazz playing, Camille barefoot, me dusty and too comfortable. Denise made a joke about how cozy everything looked. After she left, Camille pulled on a cardigan, turned off the music. The mood cooled, but the intimacy stayed, simmering under the surface. Outside, the clouds thickened. Gray light filled the kitchen. Camille offered to let me stay late to finish a section so I wouldn't have to come back on Saturday. I said yes. By dusk, I was still there, alone with her as rain started tapping the windows. The hum of the fridge got louder in the quiet. She stood at the island, watching me work, and I felt her gaze like a physical thing. Thunder rumbled over the neighborhood. The storm rolled in fast. Rain beat against the glass. The lights flickered once, twice. Camille heated soup and offered me some. We ate facing each other over blueprints and screws, rain and jazz filling the silence between words. Another flicker. The house went dark. Then backup power kicked in, leaving only the under-cabinet LEDs and the fridge hum. Camille laughed nervously. I went to check the breaker, hands brushing the cool wall in the dark. When I came back, she was standing at the island, one hand on the marble, her bare feet on the cold tile. She rubbed one ankle with the other, anxious, uncertain. We stood close, shoulders touching, looking at my sketches. Her jasmine vanilla perfume wrapped around me. Every breath felt amplified, every small movement loaded with meaning. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "If I kiss you, it doesn't count." She tried to make it sound like a joke. It wasn't. My heart slammed against my ribs. I should have stepped back, should have said something safe, something professional. Instead I said, "Then kiss me twice." Time stretched. We both realized what we'd just done, the line we'd just drawn in the air between us. We didn't move, didn't kiss, didn't touch. The idea of it was enough to change everything. A car door slammed outside. Headlights swept across the kitchen wall. Marcus's voice carried from the driveway, ending a phone call. Camille jerked back like she'd been burned, mumbled something about the alarm, practically ran from the room. I was left alone with the fridge hum and the echo of those words. I packed my tools with shaking hands, left through the side door as Marcus came in through the front. On the dark drive home, I turned off the radio, replayed that moment over and over. The way her voice trembled, the way my heart answered before my brain could stop it. The next morning I woke up groggy, drove back to the house, gripping the steering wheel too tight. Everything had changed. Camille kept to her office. Marcus filled the kitchen, joking with me about keeping my wife from changing her mind a million times. She communicated through sticky notes on the island, questions about finishes, instructions about tools, a printed schedule. Her perfume lingered in rooms she'd already left. The jazz was gone. Just tools and the fridge and silence. At lunch, Marcus took a call in the next room. I caught phrases. Remote access. The new camera package. I glanced up at the ceiling. That small camera dome I'd noticed before. Wires newly secured. A tiny LED light I couldn't tell was on or off. Late afternoon, Denise rang the doorbell with HOA flyers. She chatted with Marcus, eyes sliding past him toward me, fishing for information about schedules and late nights. Camille appeared briefly to decline an HOA invite, barely met my eyes. Retreated upstairs. As I wiped dust from the ceiling, I saw that camera more clearly now. The angle, the view, pointed exactly where Camille and I had stood the night before. The hair rose on the back of my neck. That evening, Marcus left for a night shift. The house lights shifted. I stepped onto the porch with my tool bag and glanced back through the kitchen window. The camera, the tiny LED, glowing faint but unmistakable. I got in my truck feeling watched for the first time. Over the next few days, the pattern held. Sticky notes, distant politeness. Camille armored in makeup and careful distance. I worked under the eye of that camera, acutely aware of every movement. Marcus stayed home one afternoon, fiddling with a small hub on the island. He showed me the app on his phone. Live views. Front door. Backyard. Kitchen. "Finally got around to setting this up," he said. "Can't trust anyone these days." Camille went pale when she saw the kitchen feed. She'd thought that camera was broken. Decorative. It wasn't. I worked all day knowing every gesture was recorded. Time-stamped. Available for review. Camille whispered an apology when Marcus stepped out. I didn't think he'd actually turn them on. That night I sat in my truck outside their house, staring at the camera dome through the window. a tiny red LED glowing. I realized our whole safe bubble might have been recorded. Every conversation, every look, every moment we thought was private, someone had tightened a net around both of us. The next day, the mood was darker. Camille greeted me with perfect makeup and practiced distance. The camera's red LED stayed on. We spoke louder, more formally. Everything on record. During a brief moment alone, she muttered that Marcus had been reviewing footage at night, commenting on how late I stayed, watching body language frame by frame. Class shame crashed over me. One wrong interpretation could destroy her reputation and my business. That evening, she handed me a task list and said, too formally, "We're nearly done." She didn't meet my eyes. That night, she texted me for the first time. Just business. "Can you confirm the final invoice total?" I typed the number, wanted to ask if she was okay, deleted the words, hit send, lay awake staring at the ceiling. That red LED burned into my mind. The next morning, I drove to the gate as usual. The knot in my stomach had been there all night. The guard didn't buzz me in. He stepped out and handed me an envelope. "Gate code's been changed," he said. "Instructions say no contractors without authorization." I parked outside and walked to the house. At the front door, my tools sat stacked on the porch, wiped clean. A second envelope on top. Inside was a bank check for the full amount. A typed note. "Project complete. Thank you. The Johnson family." No signature. I looked up at the house. Curtains drawn, no movement, porch light off. I knocked once, no answer. Walked, past Denise's house. She opened her door just enough to see the tools in my hands, raised her eyebrows. I kept walking. In my truck, I drafted a text. "Are you okay?" Deleted it. Tried again. "Got the envelopes. Thank you for everything." Delivered. No reply. I drove away from that neighborhood for what I thought was the last time. The gate closed behind me like a final sentence, dropped my tools on the workshop floor harder than necessary. The clatter echoed in the empty space. I hadn't just lost a client. I'd lost the strange, fragile world I was never supposed to have in the first place. I need to maintain the same intimate, confessional tone, short sentences mixed with longer ones, sensory details, the ache of forbidden connection. Everything stays realistic and grounded. In the weeks after the Johnson job ended, I threw myself into other work. Small bathroom remodel, deck repair. Nothing paid like that kitchen had. But every time I walked down a hardware store aisle, the smell of lemon oil hit me, and I was back in that house, under those lights, standing too close to her at the island. Lily noticed. I forgot measurements, double-booked appointments, showed up to the wrong address once. She cornered me in the warehouse. "What happened on that job?" "Nothing." "Ethan." "It's done. Let it go." She didn't believe me. I didn't blame her. At home, I couldn't stop scrolling through old photos on my phone. Progress shots of the Johnson kitchen, the playlists we'd shared. I couldn't delete them, couldn't look at them without my chest tightening. At night, I'd lie awake, replaying conversations, wondering what Marcus had seen, what Camille had decided, where I fit in the blame. I started driving the long way home, past that gated community entrance, not going in, just staring at the guardhouse, the distant roof lines, the perfect lawns hiding messy lives. One evening I noticed Marcus's Porsche missing from the driveway. The next night, too. The Johnson house sat dim except for a soft glow from the kitchen window. I didn't know what that meant, but it kept me awake. A few days later, Lily was scrolling Facebook at the office. She laughed at some HOA meme and called me over. "Look at these suburban people and their drama." I glanced at the screen, recognized the group name. Same gated community. "Wait," I said. "Can you get into that group?" She looked at me funny. "I know someone from high school who lives there. Why?" "Just curious." She handed me her phone. I scrolled past bake sales and lawn competitions. Then I saw Denise's name, a post from 3 days ago, a passive-aggressive reminder about respecting vows and being mindful of appearances when you invite workers into your home. No names, but the comments made it clear who she meant. My gut twisted. I kept scrolling, found posts about Camille missing HOA meetings, skipping a charity event she usually organized. Someone mentioned Marcus staying closer to the hospital in a rental, framed as a career move. Class shame and guilt crashed down on me all at once. I was safe out here. Camille was the one living with the fallout. "Did something happen?" Lily asked, watching my face. "There was drama," I admitted. "I'll tell you someday." That night I sat on my couch in the dark, opened the photo of the finished Johnson kitchen. Cabinets gleaming, under-cabinet lights on, everything perfect and empty. I zoomed in on the island edge, remembered her hand resting there, her voice whispering in the storm. I locked the screen without deleting it, stuck between past and future. Another few weeks slipped by like water. I tried to move on, joined a cheap gym, let Lily set me up on a date with a friend of hers. Nice woman. Pretty smile. We had drinks, and I spent the whole time comparing her laugh to Camille's, hating myself for it. My sleep got worse. Some nights I'd pass out from exhaustion. Others I'd lie awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment in the dark kitchen over and over. One night I went to bed early after a long day. The room was dark. Phone face down on the nightstand. At 2:07 a.m., it buzzed. I woke up squinting at the screen. Unknown number. A photo loading slowly in the dark. The Johnson kitchen. Finished. Under cabinet lights glowing, a single mug on the island. The caption, "The cameras are off now." My heart slammed into my throat. I sat up, wide awake, staring at those words. I didn't have the number saved, but I knew it was her. I typed a response, erased it, typed again. My hands shook. What do you say to a message like that? What do you do when a door you thought was sealed suddenly cracks open in the middle of the night? I lay back down, phone on my chest. Watched the room slowly lighten with dawn. Never sent a reply. The next morning I made coffee with shaking hands. Finally typed something neutral. Safe. I just realized I still have a drill bit that belongs with your set. I can swing by to drop it off if that's okay. The longest pause of my life. Then, Jordan will be home from school around 3. You can stop by then. No emojis, no extra words. But it was an opening. I spent the entire day in a fog, canceled an errand to clear the afternoon, showered, shaved, put on a shirt that was nicer than my usual work clothes but still plausible, pocketed the small drill bit like a talisman, drove to the gated community in the mid-afternoon. The guard recognized me, checked a list, made a call, buzzed me in. Re-entering that neighborhood felt surreal, like walking back into a dream I'd been kicked out of. The houses looked the same, different wreath on the Johnsons' door, new plant on the porch, small changes that meant time had passed. Jordan's school bus pulled up as I parked. He stepped off, backpack low, spotted me with surprise. "Hey," he said. "Mom said you might come." He opened the door. The smell of lemon oil and something baking drifted out. I stepped over the threshold for the first time in weeks, heart pounding. The kitchen looked almost exactly like my last photo. Finished, polished, lived in but tidy. A pot simmered on the stove. The under-cabinet lights hummed softly. Jordan handed me the drill bit absently. Thanks for this. Then, quieter. Hey, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think, if someone's good with their hands, is college still worth it? I looked at him. 17, and already questioning the path everyone expected him to take. Depends what you want, I said honestly. Trade school's not a backup plan, it's a real path. But college opens different doors. You have time to figure it out. He nodded, chewing his lip. My dad wants me to be a doctor. I don't think I want that. Before I could respond, Camille appeared in the doorway to the backyard. Oversized sweater, leggings, bare feet, hair loose. She looked tired, but softer, less armored. Will you come outside? She asked quietly. Talk where it's quieter? We stepped onto the pool deck. The air was cooler. Distant traffic and birds filled the space. The backyard felt private in a way the camera-filled kitchen never had. Thank you for coming, she said. Thank you for letting me. Silence. Then she started talking. The words came slowly at first, then faster, like a dam breaking. Marcus reviewed the footage, questioned the late nights, our conversations, the way we stood too close. He didn't have proof of anything physical, but he had enough to accuse, enough to feel betrayed. I ended the project to protect you, she said, to show him I was cutting ties. The typed note, the gate code, all of it was performance. Where is he now? Rental closer to the hospital. We're calling it a separation without calling it that, for Jordan's sake. She wrapped her arms around herself. We've been broken for a long time. You didn't cause that, but you made me realize I couldn't keep pretending. I'm sorry, I said. For my part in it. For crossing lines I shouldn't have. She shook her head. You didn't push. You didn't send desperate texts. You gave me space when I needed it. She paused. That meant more than you know. We stood there as the weight of everything settled between us. The guilt, the longing, the impossible distance between her world and mine. I still think about it, she admitted. That night in the storm, what I said, what you said back. Me too. It scared me. How much I wanted it to count. From inside, Jordan called something about dinner. Camille's eyes stayed on mine for another beat. Then she stepped closer. Instead of kissing me, she rested her forehead gently against my chest. Eyes closed, breathing me in. I kept my hands at my sides, honoring the boundary she was drawing even as she broke it. The moment lasted 5 seconds. Maybe 10. Then she pulled back, straightened, and the armor slid back into place. Thank you, she said again. Wis walked back toward the sliding door with a new understanding between us. The line was still there, but now we'd drawn it consciously. Inside, Jordan set plates at the island. The domestic scene was almost painful in its normalcy. Camille offered coffee. We sat at the far end of the island. The camera above us was still there, but the red LED was dark. I understood what her 2 a.m. text had meant. I can't go through another scandal, she said quietly. I need to keep things boring. For a while. I understand. No late nights, no private texts that could be misread. She looked at her hands. But I don't want to erase you completely either. Jordan joined the conversation. Asked me about trade schools. What it's like to work with your hands. Build something real. Camille watched him with pride and pain in her eyes, seeing a different kind of man as an example for her son. Before I left, she mentioned a few small projects. Built-in shelf in the entryway, wobbly stair that needed fixing. Plausible reasons for me to come back occasionally without raising eyebrows. Nothing that looks suspicious, she said. Just maintenance. I agreed. At the door, she tried to joke about the age gap. "I'm old enough to be your cool aunt." It landed hollow. We both felt the unspoken alternative hanging in the air. I drove through the gate at dusk. My phone buzzed. A photo from Camille. An open cookbook on the kitchen counter. Ingredients laid out. Message: "Trying one of those recipes your mom used to make." I smiled sadly. My childhood and this forbidden connection mixing in my chest. Over the next few months, we settled into a careful rhythm. I came by once to install the entryway shelf. Brought Lily with me. Made it clear I was just a contractor. We chatted with Camille about neutral topics, while Denise watched from her window, seeing nothing scandalous. Jordan texted me occasionally about trade programs. I'd send links, answer questions. Camille would add a "thank you" at the end of the thread, but never started separate conversations. Late at night, after other jobs, I'd sometimes drive past her street. Most nights the porch light was steady. But sometimes, as my truck passed, it flickered twice. I chose to believe that was intentional. She sent quiet signals. A photo of a new plant on the windowsill, the reading nook with fresh books, the kitchen at golden hour. No captions, just single words. Progress. Better. Still here. I started taking on more work, focused on growing the business with Lily, paid down more of my dad's debt. But the Johnson house remained a constant landmark in my mind. One late night, my phone pinged. A photo from Camille. The dark kitchen. Only the under-cabinet lights on. Island spotless. A single glass of water on the counter. No text. Just the image. I stared at it for a long time. Then locked the phone and set it face down on the nightstand. The hum of my own fridge in the next room reminded me of theirs. Nearly 6 months after I first walked into the Johnsons' house, I was doing a walkthrough at a new client's place. Another nice home. Not as grand, but above my usual jobs. I moved through their kitchen describing tile options, cabinet finishes, talking more confidently now. The client asked good questions, and I had good answers. After work, I drove home. The route took me near the gated community. I hesitated at the turn, then followed the familiar road out of habit more than intention. At the gate, the same guard nodded. I didn't go in, just slowed enough to see down the main street. The Johnson house was still there. Porch neat, lights off in the late afternoon. As I passed the cross street, the porch light flicked on, then off, then on again. 2 quick blinks. Could have been a coincidence, could have been a short, could have been her. I chose to read it as a quiet hello. I kept driving. Jordan was looking at schools now. Camille had resumed some public events. Marcus's car was there sometimes, and gone others. Life was messy but functioning. At home, I parked in front of my small place, carried in blueprints, the smell of sawdust still on my clothes, flipped on my own porch light, left it on steady. I sat at my kitchen table and started working up a new bid with Lily's notes beside me. My phone lay on the table face down but within reach. Not waiting, but not entirely closed off either. I glanced out my window toward the distant direction of the gated community. Thought about that porch light. Those 2 quick blinks, the 2 a.m. photo, the forehead-to-chest moment in the backyard. All the things that didn't count on paper but lived forever in the spaces between people. She still swears it doesn't count, but every time her porch light blinks twice, I'm reminded that some moments do, whether we name them or not. I turned to a fresh page in my notebook and kept writing. Some doors don't close all the way. Some just stay quietly, dangerously ajar. Not every door closes. Some just stay quietly, dangerously ajar.